I'm Haley Godwin.
And I'm Emily Jones.
And we're doing a video book review on The Invisible Man by Ralph Ellison. Spoiler alert, if you have not read this book, I would not recommend watching this video.
Some of the most common themes throughout his work are race and blindness.
One example of the themes that we're going to talk about, race and identity, is mentioned in Shadow and Act, which is a book full of essays that Ellison completed, which talks about his racial identity and how that relates to his life. Although some of Ellison's other works don't focus primarily on the themes we're going to talk about today, The Invisible Man focuses solely on race as well as blindness, which is relevant to our society today and still matters to us because there are several different groups of people in society who struggle with their race and their identity as well as feeling blind.
At the start of the novel, the narrator starts elaborating on his graduation speech at the Battle of Royal.
At the end of the Battle Royal, the narrator is presented with a briefcase which holds a scholarship to attend an all-Negro college.
After getting kicked out of college, the narrator takes his briefcase and 7 letters from Bledsoe to Harlem in search for a job.
After many different attempts with sending all of the letters off, he finally ends a job at a paint factory, which ends up going very badly, and he is hospitalized in the paint factory hospital, and his memory is basically brainwashed. He wakes up feeling like a new person, not remembering very much about himself, also including his name. He doesn't remember his name or anybody around him. First, we're going to be discussing the significance of the title. The title of this book is The Invisible Man. So the first line in the novel is, "I am the Invisible Man." And the narrator in this novel says that he is the Invisible Man because he has no certain identity that he goes by. And also throughout the whole book, we never find out a name. He does not have a specific name that we know him by. Ergo, invisible. Throughout the book, all of the men that the narrator came to know and trust ended up betraying him in the end, including Mr. Bledsoe, Mr. Norton, as well as Brother Jack.
One of the common themes of the novel is the identity and race of the narrator. For example, being the driver of Mr. Norton, and him saying that it was his destiny and his fate to know where each of his students go, and at the end of the novel, Mr. Norton doesn't even recognize the narrator. Another example would include the union workers thinking that he is someone that he's not. They think that he is someone who is against the union. However, he only enters the locker room to get his lunch. Before he even opens his mouth, he is perceived to be against the union. However, he has no idea what the union is about. The third example includes when the narrator puts on glasses as a disguise. He is thought to be Mr. Reinhardt, which has several identities. You still going?
Yeah.
Okay. Some of those are a pimp, a priest, and a gambler and hustler. Going further into this example, the narrator is stopped on the side of the street several times because they assume that he's Reinhardt.
Looking at the following statements as well as examples that Emily mentioned, our narrator does not know who he truly is. With the narrator looking back on his life and his true identity, there's not one that can be found because he's given so many different identities by these people that he does not truly understand which person is him in the end. Similarly, a journalist by the name of Timothy Parrish says that this book has a kind of authorial split identity, which means that throughout this whole book, there's not one set identity that the narrator can go by. He does not know who his true self is, so he goes by all these different personalities and identities that the people give to him to make him feel like he is that identity that is given to him at the time, when in reality, he does not know who he truly is.
Towards the end of the novel, the narrator hides himself away in order to try to find out who he is. Spoiler alert, he never does.
The second common theme throughout the book that we're going to be discussing is blindness. Beginning to look at blindness as a common theme, there are many things that contribute to this theme and why it's so relevant for the book The Invisible Man. First, after the battle royal and after the narrator is done presenting his speech, he is presented with a briefcase. The briefcase is proven to be very significant throughout the whole story in dealing with what the narrator thinks is truly important, ends up not being important. There are many different documents that are put into this briefcase that the narrator deems important, and he thinks that they will lead to his success in life, which actually ends up in a downward spiral and he ruins his life. The narrator was blinded by this scholarship because in reality he thought that it was a privilege when he received this scholarship. When presented with this scholarship to an all-Negro college in front of all the other white men, he was really being degraded and put in his place, although he didn't know that he was being put in his place. The second documents that are placed into the briefcase include the 7 letters of recommendation that Bledsoe sends the narrator with to New York. Pause. The narrator thought that the 7 letters of recommendation from Bledsoe would lead to assisting him in getting a job, when in reality he was told not to open the sealed letters and take them directly to the people that Bledsoe knew in New York, which ended up depriving him of that job opportunity when one of the assistants read the letter and told the narrator to read it, and he found out what was really inside.
In the letters that Haley just mentioned, the narrator thought that Bledsoe had written them to praise him. However, they were not written to praise him, they were written to degrade him and to keep him running. The next item put into the briefcase is the broken piggy bank. The broken piggy bank describes blindness in the novel because whenever a narrator tries to throw it away, everyone seems to notice, and no one wants black people's trash mixed in with theirs. This makes the narrator think that he is unworthy and unequal. The narrator is blind to the fact that people don't want his trash mixed in with theirs because he is unequal and unworthy.
The next item that we find located inside the briefcase is a little black Sambo doll that was given to the narrator by a character in the novel named Griffin. The narrator is blind in this aspect because the little black Sambo doll that Griffin was selling to people on the corner of the street is a cartoon representative of himself. On the little black Sambo doll is attached strings that the puppeteer moves around to make the doll do whatever they want to. So in reality, this is like the narrator being pulled around by the different characters such as Bledsoe, as well as Mr. Norton, and also Brother Jack, who are making him do things that he thinks are his own will, but when in reality, everybody else in the book is making him do these things and it's against his will. The final document enclosed inside of the briefcase is an anonymous letter from a resident in Harlem. At the end of the novel, we find out that this anonymous letter lines up with the handwriting from Brother Jack, and when the narrator finds out, he is very shook. The narrator is blind to this fact because he didn't realize, and right after he met Brother Jack, that his handwriting matched up with this anonymous letter. So he was really being played all along, and he didn't even realize it. So that is why he's blind.
Overall, the 2 main themes of The Invisible Man are identity and blindness. Those are compared to our society today by
the common theme identity throughout the book relates to our society today by a various amount of people having an identity crisis. People in society tell them that they are somebody or something that they feel like, when in reality it's not who they really are. People in society make them believe these facts, when in reality people in today's society have identity crisis because they believe everything around them and everything that everybody tells them, when in reality they need to be focused on who they truly are and figure out.
The theme of blindness is relevant to today's society because people are blinded by the worldly values that are put onto us instead of the more important things, such as focusing on your true identity, which also relates back to our other theme. Thank you.